Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to our /MaliciousCompliance, where people on purpose follow exact orders to spite people they hate. And in today's episode, power-tripping Karens are getting taught lessons yet again, guys. And one smug vice president learns a hard lesson when they pull rank on a lowly worker. The lineup today is awesome, so sit back, relax, and try not to smile too much at people's misfortune. To start, I work in a grocery store. Now, this isn't just any grocery store, it's one of the busier stores in the entire district, with my specific department being the busiest department in our store. Most people who come work this department quickly move to another, because our work is back-to-back with no downtime in between. That said, I pride myself on being a hard worker no matter what. I always strive to learn more, do more, be more. I make myself a necessary asset because it gives me a lot of influence. In my department, I'm a part-timer, but I do just as much work as our department managers. Without me, the department would be, well, effed because no other part-timers willing to do the work that I do. Now, what exactly do I do that other part-timers don't? I place orders, I adjust inventory, handle direct store delivery, receiving, markdowns. I do 5 a.m. shifts to hang tags, 5 a.m. shifts to deep clean vital sections. I'll work overnights on holiday weeks. I do end cap planning, changing, all that stuff. It's a lot of work, way more than I should be doing. But the benefit is that all managers know how much I do and they leave me alone. All managers except for Karen. Karen is our front-end manager. She's a mean-spirited person who's awful at her job. She's never paying attention to what other departments are doing, hence, she doesn't realize how vital I am to our department, but she insists on acting like she does. I've heard multiple complaints from others in my department that Karen tells them that they're slacking and they need to get more work done. I know full well this isn't the case, and she just wants someone to bitch at. One day, I'm on break. We get 2 15-minute breaks and 1 30-minute lunch. I decided to skip my morning break and combine my 2 15s into 1 half-hour break, because my grandmother had recently broken her rib, and I was trying to coordinate with family about who could take care of her and when. Karen walks back into the break room once, and then again later. She then makes some sly comment about me taking my break so early in my shift. So I explained to her that it wasn't early at all, and I thought nothing of it. Now I guess Karen didn't like my tone of voice or something, because an hour later, she calls me into her office. Turns out, she had checked the cameras in the break room, and she caught me taking an extended break. Before I even had the chance to speak, she went on this rant about how the department looks like garbage and it must be my fault since she caught me doing this. I was finally able to speak, and I tried explaining to her that I only combined my 2 breaks into 1. She then asked if I knew I wasn't supposed to do that, which I told her I did. She then said, "Well then, if you know you shouldn't be doing it, then why are you doing it? If you shouldn't be doing something, then don't do it in the first place." She literally said that to me in a tone of voice like she was scolding a young child. And that's when I thought, game, set, match. I wanted so badly to exact my malicious compliance immediately, but I knew the bigger, badder managers would be in tomorrow along with her, and I knew they would absolutely rip into her for what I was about to do. I took the time to write out my new availability on paper. No more overnights, check. No more hanging tags or cleaning, check. I also wrote down my request for a $2 pay raise if they'd like me to continue doing all the other things part-timers don't have to do, along with the list of what exactly those responsibilities were. I went over to the manager's office and I saw Karen sitting alone, and I thought, perfect. I just said nothing, and I simply handed her the paper. She looked confused at first, and she asked me what this was. I explained to her that those are all the things I shouldn't be doing, since I'm not getting paid for them, and they're not part of my job description being a part-timer. And let me tell you, I've never seen a look of pure despair on a person's face until that day. She first got angry at me and she told me I shouldn't be overblowing things. When it was clear that her being angry with me was only making my moment sweeter, she tried reasoning with me. And really, this was just her explaining why I was wrong in nicer words. I wasn't having any of it though. I just told her that we could have a meeting with the other managers to discuss it if she'd like. Not to my surprise, she declined that offer. Shortly after, I was questioned by the other managers separately why I was doing this. I explained how she checked the cameras on me during my extended break, and I told them all about our conversation where she accused me of being responsible for the state of our department. The store manager directly told me that she shouldn't have done what she did, that she would talk to her, and if she ever bothered me again, I should immediately notify one of the other managers. They had that talk, and I don't know what happened. But since that day, Karen's been nothing but an angel to me. That $2 raise was pretty sweet too. You know what, a $2 raise as a part-timer is a pretty big win, I'd say. And I'm glad to know that Karen changed her tune after recognizing all the work OP did. But in my opinion, if OP was a part-timer and doing the job that management is supposed to be doing, it wouldn't be smart to not be nice to them. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Is a $2 raise worth doing all of that extra work? So this is an old story from back when I used to work in the opticians department of a major supermarket chain. I was a part-timer, working 9 hours per week. I would work 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturdays and 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Sundays. A part of my job was to close down the department on both days, because none of the managers liked being around at closing time. The department closed at 9 p.m. on Saturdays, but it was often about 9:20 that I actually left. Closing down a department takes time, mostly because you can't do it when customers are browsing. Unsurprisingly, I consistently worked more hours than I was supposed to. All the store employees were on the clock, and for some reason, the store took readings down to the second. My store manager, who I'll call Val because that was her name, called a meeting at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, which was coincidentally the time I was scheduled to start work. The gist of the meeting was that some people, she said, looking directly at me, were claiming more than their allotted hours, and this must stop. Henceforth, all overtime must be approved in writing. This was entirely her decision. Other departments didn't have a problem as long as you weren't taking the mick. Fast forward to about 8:45 p.m. Val and I were the only employees left in the department. She starts gathering her things, as is her way, and I started the process of putting our more expensive frames into their night display cases, where they could safely be locked away when the department was closed. That's when Val says to me, "What on earth are you doing, OP?" I respond, "I'm locking up. I have to make sure I don't go over my hours today." She then says to me, "Well, this department has to be open until 9 p.m. It's in the store handbook. You can't lock up right now. My boss will be furious." That's when I tell Val, "Well, you know from experience that it takes a good 20 minutes to lock up. I'm not allowed to be on the premises after I clock out. I have to start locking up, otherwise I'll be disciplined." I then reach for the PA system and I say, "Good evening, would Mrs. Locke please come to the optical department? Mrs. Locke, to the optical department. Thank you." And that was basically code for, "Security, bring the keys, we're locking up." And hearing me say that, Val goes white as a sheet. I could see the look on her snooty face as a very large penny began to drop. She then yelled, "Wait here," while leaving the department. By the time she returned, I explained to the security guard what's happening. He agreed to play along, and we slowly start locking down the spectacle frames. Val, with sweat starting to show on her brow, wordlessly hands me a hastily scribbled note authorizing 30 minutes of overtime. I show it to the security guard, who nodded. Val left without a word, looking really flustered, just as a customer walked in. My friend from security then unlocks the frames and I went to serve. That following day, Val's usual snooty demeanor had changed. She didn't look contrite, but there were definitely a few cracks in her expression. She took me to one side, and without preamble, she hands me a new schedule. And she launches into what was a clearly well-rehearsed speech. She says to me, "So, I've approved your request to extend your hours to 10 hours a week. I now expect you to work from 3 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. on Saturdays, and from 1 p.m. to 4:30 on Sundays. I trust that this will not be a problem." I just respond, "Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Val." She then continues, and she says, "And henceforth, if you should happen to work slightly over your hours, don't be overly concerned about it." Again, it's nice to know that Val came around in the end and owned up to her mistake making that bad call on overtime. But my thought is, what company doesn't already include the time it takes to close as part of the hours for the last shift? Like, that's retail and food services 101. And how many of you would have done this? This person comments, "I would have called her over to close up and walked out at 9 o'clock, leaving her to put stuff away." I used to work for a marketing company that serviced small and medium-sized businesses across America. It was a multi-billion-dollar revenue company. The CEO was a true rags-to-riches story. He joined the company right after he got out of jail in his early 20s for a small drug charge, and he worked his way up over 20 years to eventually become the CEO of the company. The CEO strongly believed that the success of the company did not come from the brilliant and intelligent minds that he hired for his executive team, but rather from the hard work, sweat, and tears of the infield sales reps, the service reps, collection reps, and sales managers. He would often say, "Without sales, we don't have the revenue to pay your salaries. Without customer service, customers would drop us faster than we can bill them. Without collection reps, we'd lose too many accounts due to non-payment. And without sales managers to hold it all together, we would fall apart." He also had one rule. Every single executive team member would spend one full week of each quarter in the field with a sales manager, customer service rep, collections rep, or sales rep. In addition, when they're in the field, they are to submit to whoever they've been assigned to, and they may not pull rank. This rule applied to everyone, including the CEO. Now, I know this because the CEO personally rode along with me for 5 days in the field. He was a legit cool guy, very humble, very caring towards all of his employees. With that said, we hired a new vice president of marketing from a major brand that I'm sure everyone in this sub would know of. Anyway, the first time he went in the field, the VP of marketing pulled rank on a sales manager, and the sales manager reported this directly to the CEO. A new quarter went by, and I got an email stating that the VP of marketing will be joining me in the field on such and such week. I thought to myself, cool, not the first time I had a higher up come out and ride with me. But about an hour later, I get a call from my CEO. CEO says, "OP, the vice president of marketing is going in the field with you." I reply, "Yes, sir, I got the email." He then goes and says, "I picked you because when I was in the field with you, you seemed like the kind of guy that wouldn't be bullied or let someone run all over you." I took that as a compliment and I say, "Okay, well, thank you." He then says to me, "I'm telling you this because this VP is new to the company, and the last time he went in the field, he pulled rank. I've specifically told him to never ever pull rank again, and if he does, I want you to call me as soon as you can." I let him know I understand. He replies, "Thank you." So with that, the VP meets up with me, and honestly, for the first 2 days, everything was fine. However, the third day, I was meeting an existing client. Now, this client was a difficult-to-please customer. He would always say we weren't worth the money, but I knew we were because I could see his results. Over the years, this client's business had grown a lot. This said client would also always beat us up over pricing. I would stand firm, give him a 3% price increase, and offer him upgrades on top. He would haggle me down to a 1.5% price increase, and we'd sign the contract. Now, I told the VP what would happen, that it would be a long sales call and a difficult, high-tense one, but to let me handle it, as I've dealt with this client quite a bit and I was well prepared. The meeting with this client lasted 2.5 hours, but I'll get to the point. The client wanted a discount and he was threatening to go to our competitor, but dealing with him for so long, I knew he wouldn't. That was one of his negotiation tactics. But as soon as the VP hears that, he interrupts me. He holds a hand up to my face and spoke up, and he said, "I'm the vice president and I'll personally give you a 15% discount on your current plan. That's if you agree to sign a 1-year contract right now." The customer said 20%. The VP said, "Split the difference 17.5% and we have a deal." They agreed, and I was pissed. One thing to mention is my commissions depended on me generating more revenue, and this vice president just effed me over. We get in my car and I go, "Hey, you pulled rank, you shouldn't have done that." And he said, "Well, I got the deal done, didn't I?" I said to him, "Had you kept your mouth shut, I would have gotten more money, not given 20% back." And with that, he goes, "So what? We got the contract signed. Done." I reply, "I gave away tens of thousands of dollars that we didn't need to." That's when he turns to me and he says, "Look, I'm the vice president. This is why I get paid to do what I do, because I'm good at it. I don't think you would have closed the deal without me stepping in, to be honest. If you don't like it, then do something about it." That's when I call my CEO, and he saw the name pop up on my car's Bluetooth. The CEO answers and he asked, "How are you doing?" I said to him, "Listen, the VP pulled rank on me and he gave my customer a 17.5% discount on his current plan. This was right when I was about to close him for more money." The CEO replies, "That's not right. Where is he now?" I reply, "You're on speaker. He can hear you." The CEO says, "Excellent. Hey VP, tell me what happened." So the VP tells his side of the story, which he admitted the truth, but also admitted to pulling rank and giving the customer a big discount. The CEO lets him finish talking and he says, "Okay, thank you for your honesty. Consider today your last day with the company, because as of right now, you're fired." The VP hearing that is in shock and he says, "Excuse me?" The CEO repeats himself and he says, "You're fired. You have a 1-year probation clause. You're done. I told you before and was very firm about it when I said don't pull rank when in the field." The VP tries to argue and the CEO just says, "You're to get on a plane, come back to your office and clean it out. OP, take Mr. VP back to his hotel and drop him off." I just said, "Sure, no problem." And for the next 20 minutes, I had the most awkward car ride of my whole life. Later, in an all-hands-on meeting, the CEO made sure to bring up how if an executive is in the field and pulls rank, it's a fireable offense for the executive. He wanted all the sales reps, sales managers, customer service reps, and collection reps to know that. Now that's a good boss that you'd want to work for and go above and beyond for. Like a CEO that actually cares is a rare gem, guys. And the fact that he made the higher-ups join the people in the field to let them experience the heart of the operations, gotta love that as well. That said, a lot of people are saying that what the CEO did to the VP was ruthless, guys, and he should not have put OP in that awkward position. Let me know what you think about that. So this is a story about a miss not as smart as she thinks she is getting beat by malicious compliance. Some years ago, I was finally out of debt and I was ready to start investing for my future, but I had no clue how. That's when I heard about a national organization that promoted investment clubs, offering support and tools to people like me to learn about investing by doing it. I liked the idea. Get smarter, play low stakes, and maybe have a beer or two while you do it. So I told a few friends, and they talked to their friends, and pretty soon, we had a budding investment club. Since we were all friends of friends, organizing went smoothly. We elected officers, and we adopted a simple charter based on the national group's templates. Minimum monthly dues were set at $10, an amount that any one of us could afford to throw away. Any member could contribute more than the minimum if they liked, and to build up our investing pot, most of us did. Individual contributions bought shares in the club's holdings, like a stock in a corporation. Higher contributions meant more shares, meant more voting power when we made club decisions. As we got rolling, a few more people heard about the club and they expressed interest. So we created a little process. You must attend 3 meetings as the guest of a member. Then, if you're still interested, club members decided whether to offer you an invitation, and we always did. You would then sign the charter, pay the month's dues, and you're in. Most new members paid extra for at least a while to catch up to the voting power of the founding members, so everyone stood on more or less equal footing. By year number 2, we'd settled into a friendly routine. We'd hold monthly meetings that were one part socializing, one part learning, and one part consisting on what to do with our growing pot of cash. We picked a few stocks, buying a few shares at a time, and portfolio performance was added to the monthly treasurer's report. We cheered each modest gain and we learned from small losses. And then came Pat. Pat was an outlier in our friend group. Most of us knew her, but few knew her well. She had this reputation for being a little too loud, a little too blunt, a little too cocky, and a little too rude. She was also known to be very smart. In a club focused on learning, more smart couldn't hurt, right? Besides, our well-respected president had brought her in, and right away, Pat proved she was smart. She had reviewed our charter and our past minutes before coming to her first meeting. She then asked solid questions about past decisions and our reasoning. She listened respectfully to the education and the stock study presentations, probing politely and making mostly appreciative comments after each meeting. Just a bit of smartass thrown in once in a while, but we could handle a bit. After her 3rd meeting, we sent her to the next room while we discussed inviting her to join us. There were a few misgivings expressed as we all heard stories about Pat's capacity for unpleasantness after all. But the president said, I warned her bluntly that she needs to behave when she's here. We're all friends, but this is business. Money is serious. So I told her, keep yourself in check. Leave your attitude outside. Ultimately, everyone agreed she had indeed behaved. We had no reason to doubt her sincere interest. So we called Pat back in and the president said, congratulations, Pat. Just pay your dues and sign right here. With a flourish, Pat hands treasurer a $10 bill. Everyone applauded as she signs the charter, and that's when she says, thank you, all, thank you. But frankly, you really don't have any way to keep me out. Hearing those words, the room got quieter. She then turned to treasurer and she said, now, next month, if I'm interpreting your reports correctly, all I have to do is give you X amount and I'll have equal voting rights. Is that right? That's about right, came the answer. She then goes on and says, and if I were to give you that plus here, she then points to the bottom line of the club's total holdings. And she says, if I gave you this amount, I would become the new majority shareholder, right? The answer came, I suppose. She then goes on and says, and that means I would be in charge of all club decisions. That's right. Unless you can keep ponying up more cash than I can, there is nothing you can do to stop me from running this club like my own private account, with nearly double my money to play with, is there? And now that I've signed your silly little charter, you don't have any way to kick me out. So see you all next month. And with that, she smiled, turned, and then left. The door had barely closed when the room exploded. Everyone saying she was joking, right? Like, the nerve, how could she do that? How big of a mistake did we just make? And they all agreed, wow, what a class A bitch. But as we looked over the template-based charter, we found that she was right. There were requirements for tax reporting, officer fiscal responsibilities, bank and brokerage relationships, conflicts of interest, and a host of other issues we'd never faced and never expected to face. Now, there was some language about how to buy out a voluntarily withdrawing member. There was also a provision allowing us to withdraw someone who didn't keep up with dues and/or attendance. But we had no cap on individual member contributions, and no provision allowing us to kick out a stakeholder, so long as they continued to pay their dues and attend meetings. At this point, we now realized that if she made good on her threat to buy majority holding, Pat could simply outvote any attempt to amend our charter. A more elegant solution probably existed, but within 20 minutes, someone came up with the nuclear option. 2 minutes later, we agreed to launch it. We accepted assignments, and then we went our separate ways to prepare for next month's meeting. Fast forward to that evening, everyone arrived a bit more promptly, and they settled a lot more quietly than usual. Pat looked smug as she took a seat, seeming to not care that no one spoke to her. She was just fanning herself with a personal check. Too bad we never saw it, so we'll never know if she was really ready to put her money where her loud mouth had been. This is when the president took the floor, and he says, "Before I call the meeting to order, I have a personal announcement to make. I made a really poor recommendation to all of you last month. I feel the bad judgment I showed means I'm not fit to be your president. I'm presenting my letter of resignation and my voluntary withdrawal from the club." And with that, he gave the letter to secretary. Pat looked like she'd been slapped, but she said nothing. And that's when the treasurer spoke up. He said, "Just so you all know, the president spoke to me earlier about this decision, so I've already calculated withdrawal payout and I have it ready, according to the terms of our charter." The president took the check. The vice president spoke next. The vice president said, "President, you weren't alone in that decision. I voted with you, and I also regret my poor judgment, so here's my letter of resignation and withdrawal." The treasurer then said, "And here's your withdrawal payout, prepared as we discussed." And on it went, in small clusters at first, and then all in a rush. Each club member declared that they made a terrible decision. They presented a letter, and they collected an already prepared check. Sometime during the rush, Pat stopped being silent. She says out loud, "I get it, okay? I get it. Seriously, you've made your point. That's enough now. You don't have to keep up this act, so knock it off already, you mother effers." But of course, we didn't. With all the letters collected, the secretary adds them to the back of a fat binder containing copies of all the club minutes, and then gave the binder to Pat and said, "Your next club secretary is gonna need this." The treasurer was right behind with a similar binder of financial records with a $10 bill on top. He then says, "Here's all of your club's accounting records and remaining assets." The president then added the signed charter to the stack, and he says, "So Pat, looks like you're now a club of one. You win. Good luck and goodbye." We all just stood and stared silently until she just shoved the stack to the floor and saw herself out the door. Within 10 minutes, we signed our newly upgraded charter. We re-elected officers, tore up all of the payout checks, and put our new club back to business as usual, only just a bit more giggly and a little more pleased with ourselves than usual. We never did see Pat again, and we didn't care. Seriously, nothing like a smug Karen's plan backfiring horribly, and thank goodness it did. But what a funny situation though, right? Like, Karen obviously learned the wrong lesson from all the villain monologuing in movies. If only she kept her mouth shut, right? Her plan might have worked. But we all know that Karens aren't the brightest of people. They always let their ego get the best of them. I'm a 23-year-old male, and I've worked for a certain colored crustacean for a year and a half now. I bounced around between positions until they stuck me as a backup, which, for context, means I make more of anything we run out of. It also makes you the baker. Now, this specific chain was well known for their biscuits. Like, I'd say most people just go there for the biscuits and not the actual food. So it is pretty common to hear a server yell, "Down bread," on a half-hour schedule. Usually, I can keep up with the demand and my par list, but one day, our morning prep person dipped and I couldn't come in early due to something personal. So when I got there, it was a mess. There was no bread, no prepped food, just chaos. I get things under control until the rush comes in. By that point, I'm swamped and I can't keep up with bread because the line needs food constantly made. I was in fact asking for assistance and I wasn't given any. I got so behind on bread that our manager on duty comes to the back and screams at me and says, "Whatever you're doing for the line, stop. Just make biscuits and nothing else the rest of the night." Now, I hate being yelled at, and the fact that everyone heard him yell at me just pissed me off even more. So with that, cue malicious compliance. I tell our line that I can't help them anymore, and they're on their own. I begin cranking out biscuits like a machine while the line struggles to keep up with orders. It actually gets so bad that the same manager comes back and he asked why we have 40+ minute tickets and no food's gone out. They calmly tell him because he has me making bread and not getting them the materials they need. The manager asked me why I'm not doing my job, and I explain that I'm only following his orders and only focusing on bread for the night. I think we had 6 tables leave that night because their food was taking over an hour to get to them. The food that did went out, came out cold, was made incorrectly, was missing components, the works. All because the manager made me focus on making the biscuits. I got called into our GM's office the next day to explain what happened and why our sales were so bad and the night went horribly. I happily explained what the manager told me and the fact that he screamed at me, and in the end, I walked out scot-free. Yeah, nothing bothers me more than a manager who's unwilling to step up and help out when things go to crap, and on top of that, tries to throw someone under the bus for not able to do the impossible. Like, shame on that guy, and I'm glad the GM saw it wasn't OP's fault. With that said, what a great malicious compliance, and I do want to know how many biscuits OP ended up making that night. As I can imagine, it was probably a ridiculous amount. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r / malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's another r / entitled People episode, where a smug, entitled college kid thinks it's funny to block a fire truck. And we all know that's a horrible idea. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.